Welcome to TechbrothersIT. In this video, we are going to talk about data flow in Azure Data Factory, why we need data flow in Azure Data Factory, and what are pricing for data flow, why and which type of compute data flow provides us. And there are tons of other things I'm going to talk through this video. So first of all, data flow will execute on your own Azure Databricks cluster for scale out data processing using Spark. ADF handles all the code translation, Spark optimization, and execution of transformation in data flows. So each time you are going to run your data flow is going to create a Databricks cluster on which your code is going to run or your data flow is going to run. And now this ADF is going to convert everything to the Spark, and that Spark code is going to be running on that Databricks cluster. Now let's talk about that. If you have watched my older videos in SSIS or ADF, there is a kind of control flow. So first of all, when you create the pipeline, pipeline has here is our pipeline. Now in this pipeline, you have tons of activities and such as for each loop, right? Now in the for each loop, you have this is kind of control flow, and then inside those flows you can run further activities. So here's a copy activities there as well. So you have copy activity, you have for each and all that, but there is no activity here on the top of here, these transformations that can let you join the data between two input sources. You also can't really drive columns, such as many times we have seen that, like, oh, I need copy activities reading the data from a CSV file, and I need to concatenate columns and or create a new column with where I just extract 3 characters from that column and write to the destination. That's not possible. There are some workarounds we did in the last videos, but those are very, like, you're handling the things on the in the store procedure or something like that. So these are kind of control flows where you are flowing the instructions, and then if you need to work on your data, such as joining, multi-conditioning, lookup, applying translating your data into the JSON objects or arrays and all those kind of things. That's not going to be happening with copy activity or any other transformation we have it here. For those kind of tasks, what we need a data flow. So where the data flow can be found, you can go to the tab right here. There is the data flows, and click on these 3 dots here and new data flow. Now once you click on data flow, it's going to ask you data flow debug. You cannot run the data flow in the pipeline without enabling data flow debug. So as I said that it's going to create a Databricks cluster, right? So Microsoft does not give you like, oh, you can go ahead and keep writing your pipeline code for data flow, and maybe all day long we will keep the compute up for you. So once you click on here, what's going to happen, it's going to ask you, hey, we will be charging you for that, and you have which integration services the runtime you will be using, so you can provide that. And here it will be asking you in which region is auto region, and compute type is general, and the core count is 4 plus 4. That's mean 8 cores total. Now debug time to live 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour. Now debug time is between 1 hour, 2 hours, and 4 hours. That means if you need to develop something, you are gonna enable for maybe 1 hour, and if you're gonna take more time to go for 2 hours and all that. So it's you will be paying the price for the, even you are developing your data flow, you will be paying the money because you have selected some compute here. Now you need to maybe test with higher cores as you are developing your solution, so that's possible as well, and I'm going to show you that part in later in the video. Now once you enable that, then you will be able to execute the data flow. So first you're going to hit OK here, and what it is going to do, it is going to data flow debug. So see, it is saying getting the cluster ready. So it's going to take like 4 or 5 minutes, and that's where it's going to set up our cluster, Databricks cluster. Now meanwhile, let me show you a few things. I was talking why data flow is important and needed. Now here you have add source. Now in the source you have so many sources available. So see all these which are not grayed out, still here till Snowflake, you are seeing these all sources. So you can go to Azure Blob Storage, read the CSV file, JSON file, and other different formats of the file. You can read the data from Azure Cosmos DB or Data Explorer. You can read the data from Gen 1, Gen 2. You can read the data from Azure Data, MySQL, Postgres, and Azure SQL DB, Azure SQL Managed Instance, and Synapse, Dynamics, REST, SQL Server, Snowflake. The ones which are not which are grayed out, you can't reuse them in the data source, and that's they might be available later on. You can click here if you want to just see with the according to database or file system and all that. So you can give you more information. But if you click on all, it's going to show you all which are enabled and which are not enabled. Now, these are all the sources you have here. Now, what I was talking about, that's you can have these sources in the copy activity as well, but you don't have all these features. Now, if you need to join the data between two different sources, that's only happening. So there are another source here, and now you need to join them. That's only happening between if you are using a data flow. Okay, if you need to perform conditional split because the data is coming from your input, maybe you want to divide into multiple regions and write to multiple destinations. That's only happening in the data flow by using conditional splitting. You're not going to be doing it with copy activity. Okay, now you can union. There is also lookup. And all these transformations, if you guys remember that, who have watched my SSIS videos, these all transformations are available in SSIS. They are not different in Azure Data Factory data flow. Also, these are in the data flow in SSIS as well. Let's go to the, you have drive column, you have select, you have aggregate, surrogate, key, pivot, unpivot window, and then you have a external call, you have flatten, transformation, parse, and signify, and then tons of other. We are going to go through each of them and create the demos on it, so you will watch. But the point is, if you are using a data flow, there is a new world to it. You can do anything on what you want to do on your data and transform your data accordingly the way you want to do before you write to the final destination. At the end, what you will do, you will use this sync, and in the sync, that's where you're going to click on the sync, go to the data set here, and then select the wherever you want to write. Again, not you cannot write to the many different data sources, such as you cannot write to Azure file table storage or all that. So whichever are highlighted or they're not grayed out, these are the ones you can select. Now, if you notice that so this is how your data flow will look like. So we can rename our data flow. If we want to rename it, we can let's say if I want to say demo data flow. Okay, so this will be renamed, and then we will how we will use this, we will go out to our pipeline, and then you can simply drag to it, or you can bring our data flow task here, and then in the settings you can select from the drop down, so data flow right there. So now you know what exactly is the data flow, how to create your data flow, and what type of functionality is available in data flow. Let's talk a little bit about our pricing here. So if you see right there, it says data flow debug. So it is ready now. So now if I want to run my data flow, I can go ahead and run it. So if I delete all these things, I don't need them, and I can simply, let me make it quick for you. Maybe I will make a connection to the one of the file, the limited file, and then I can select my linked service and select the file, input file, and then here we can simply select file, and let's say hit none, and right there. Okay, so you see we have made the connection, and now we can preview the data and whatever we want to do. So I don't want to go into development right now. I want to give you more details, why you need it and where you need it, and what things you need to remember when you want to play with data flow. First of all, if you can do things in copy activity, I will suggest you to do it, because the data, each time you're gonna run your data flow, it means you are paying for a Databricks cluster. So let's go to the pricing. And here is the pricing. If you see right there, so if you see right here, data movement activity, that's your copy activity here. Let's say in 0.25 DIU per hour. So that's a rate what you are going to pay for this data movement. Now, if you go further down there and you see right there, you are paying for, there are two types of compute. If there is a general purpose, then you are paying 0.274 per week or per hour. Okay, so think about that. The minimum you can do with the 8 cores. So 8 cores multiply this. So that's what you're gonna pay for your data flow if you run for 1 hour. If you have memory optimization, and let's say you have a lot of files, you have inner joins, you are using lookups and all that, and your data flow start failing with like memory outage or memory full and all that, then you're gonna go further and say this memory optimization feature. I'm going to show you right there where it is and how to use it. Okay, now then your rate is a 0.34 per week or per hour. So think about that. And now if you are using only 4, so let me say if you have let's say 0.343 multiply 8. What did I do? 8 multiply 0.343. Okay, so you're paying almost $3 for when you're running your data flow with the memory optimization with the 8 cores. But think about that. I don't think so. You will be running your data flow with only 8 cores. You will be running probably this data flows with maybe I don't know. It depends upon your data. So if you are running with the max 256. Plus 16, so there is a max, I believe, 272 v cores. Let me clear this out. Okay, 272 multiply 0.343. So you are paying $93 for per hour computer. So if you are running your data flow is running for 1 hour, and then you are using the max v cores with memory optimization, that's what you are going to pay. So if you don't need to use data flow and you can do the things in copy activity, I will rather do in copy activity. And if I have to do in um, let's say if I don't have choice, like such as I have to use joins, multi-conditional and all those kind of things, then there is no way I can do in copy activity. Then I will be going with the data flow. Let's go back and see the codes and the general purpose and all that where you use data. So anytime what you are going to do, you are going to create this data flow. So you will be using a integration runtime. So here by default integration runtime, what you are going to see here, you are going to see 4 plus 4. That means 8 cores though. So billing for data flows is based upon the type of the compute you select and number of cores you select per hour. That's what we see just on the calculator I showed you. If you set a TTL time to live, then the minimum billing time will be the amount of time, and otherwise the time of build will be based upon the execution time of the data flow and the time of your debug sessions. So see, also you will be paying for the debug session as well. So note that debug session will incur a minimum of 60 minutes of billing time unless you switch off the debug session manually. So once you turn it on, you have to turn it off, otherwise you will pay the bill. Changes to the data flow settings will take effective upon completion of the all job currently execution of the time to live. Okay, so here is this is your auto integration runtime, right? So this is going to be auto resolve. This is going to be general purpose 4 plus 4. Now you start using this auto resolve integration runtime, and then you felt like, oh, this is not my data flow is running slow, and what I need to do, I need to have more compute. You're going to go right there, you're going to go to Azure and self-hosted, you're going to select the Azure one, and then here let's say you will select the region in maybe East US or Brazil or whatever, so Central US, let's say. Now here you can select the general purpose or memory optimized. So as I said that with the general purpose, sometime if you have too much data, you are doing joins, you are doing union, you are doing lookups, you might fail the data flow, and you will get error memory problems and all that. Then you're going to say, oh, okay, let me go for memory optimization. So once you select accordingly, okay. So let's say I will go with general purpose, and for general purpose, the rate is the 0.2474 per week or per hour. That's the rate. So now if I go back here and I will say like, let me do the max, so 256 plus the 16, that means the 72. If you see here, there is no memory here. I would rather love to have it like, oh, with 4 plus 4 you're providing me 8 GB RAM, you're with the 8 plus 8 you're providing me 26 or whatever 32 GB RAM. So I don't know how much they provide. But once you increase the vCore, automatically they are increasing the RAM on the back end, so that your processes are working faster. So 272 is the max, and then you have time to live. What does that mean? So now when we run our data flow here in the Azure Data Factory here, so your first data flow, let's say, take 10 minutes or 7 minutes to run. Let me, I don't, so right here. Okay, first it is a it is going to create the cluster, right? Databricks cluster. So that can take between 3 to 4 minutes. That's first thing it will happen. Second part, now it will start your data flow. Okay, and the third thing is the time to live. Okay, so if you have put like 10 minutes, so once first data flow is completed, it is going to live, the cluster, Databricks cluster is going to live for next 10 minutes. Okay, why? Because maybe what is happening here, you might be using this data flow for the same cluster for the next data flow. So let me explain that. Let me see here. So now if we do time to live 10 and we create it, and that's it. It's going to be creating this self-hosted IR. So you can see right there, right? Now, if I go back to my data here in the pipeline, so now this is my pipeline, right? So I may be running a for each loop here, and I'm doing something, and then I ran my data flow that start executing. Then I brought another for each loop. After that, I did some activity there, maybe deleted some table, maybe run some store procedure and all that. And then I'm bringing another data flow here. So what's happening? This data flow. Now, if the time to live is 10 minutes and this activity completes in less than 10 minutes, the same cluster will be used for this data flow. So that's good, because then I don't have to spend 4 more minutes to recreate my cluster for the next data flow. So it's good if you know, like you are going to use keep using the same cluster for next data flows. It is okay, for a few minutes, let it spin, and next using the next data flow. But if you are your activities, maybe this data flow runs first, and then you have tons of other activities that take 1 hour to run, you don't want to be paying for 1 hour. So you let it go, let the cluster die, and the time to live you can put maybe very short time. And then when the next data flow comes, it's going to create a new cluster, but it takes 4 minutes to create a new cluster. So that is okay. So also you want to make sure if I have seen a lot of people, what they will do, they will have multiple data flows running in parallel. Okay, so now what's happening, they are creating a cluster for each of the data flow. Now that will be very costly. So maybe yes, if it is necessary to process them in parallel, yes, do it. Otherwise, put them in a sequence, so you the same cluster can be used, and you pay less money. So again, it depends upon the scenario. Maybe when you put them in parallel, use two clusters, your data flows get it done in less time and finished. Or if you run a sequence, it may take more time, and the billing rate and all that, so it add up. So you have to calculate for your scenario, and that's how what you're gonna go. Okay, but now you see that in the data flow, when you have right there, and that's where let's say we go to settings, and here when we make a connection here and the open connection, and that's where you see that this is edit, and you can choose your integration runtime. So if for this source I would like to use this integration runtime that has 272 vcores, I can change it. So you can for different data flows depending upon your scenario. So let's say if for this one data flow maybe you want to just use 8 cores, so create a separate integration runtime with 8 vcores, and here this I created with this right here 272, right? Sorry, this was also with it. Okay, so if you want to have a large compute for some of the data flows, you can create the multiple integration runtimes, some with the 8 cores, some with 16 cores, some with 32 cores, some with the general purpose, some with the memory optimizer, and use them in different data flows when you need it. Okay, so they will be only used when you're gonna be running your data flow at that time, or these will be creating the database cluster and being used. So you can create maybe at least 2 or 1 that you can use at different places in the data flow. Okay, so we know the pricing. Now we know the how to use the general purpose and memory optimized integration runtimes settings, and how to use the number of cores in our integration runtime and attach them to the data flow. Now that is I believe, let me see what else we had. Yep, that's pretty much it for this video. I don't want to be talking hundreds of minutes on this topic, but honestly, once you start testing, you would know your bill. You will know how much compute you need. You will increase the compute, and you will decrease the computer. So test it out. If you really don't need a large amount of cluster, and your data is very small, you don't want to be paying for more time, even and set the TTL time to live to the some very small amount of time instead of leaving it for 60 minutes, because you will be paying the money for that. So I hope this video is useful, and now next videos will be creating the demo out of the data flow task in the Azure Data Factory. I will see you guys in next video.